Okay, can you see it, Albert?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, great. Try to see. I'm gonna try one more thing.
Sure.
And let's see how this works. Okay, is that coming through?
Uh,
Oh, wait, it's automatically playing. Never mind. Okay, we're gonna stop the share and just leave it as is.
yep. Cool, we got three people here so far. We
Okay.
are a ways till start though, so keep waiting.
Okay.
So we'll wait, I think 5 minutes in.
That's good, yes.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all for those who are here early. Please feel free to join us. Feel free to let us know where you're dialing in from today and also uh, do some networking. Share your LinkedIn profile. Let's do that.
Hi, Eileen, welcome.
Hello, Eileen. Hey, more folks getting here. Hey, Doris. Hi, Smita. Joining from Santa Clara, right down the road. All right, we got more people coming in here. Melbourne, Australia. It's always good. Cool. Yeah, we're doing the early webinar thing, guys. If you've been here for the very first time, we like to do some networking, share our LinkedIn profiles wherever we're dialing in from. If this is your 15th time, you know how it goes. We're not just here to learn, but we're also here to build a community. And so we'll get started really shortly. Welcome from Jersey. Alrighty. We'll wait a little longer here. All right. All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. Um, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and hit record separately here. And if you want to hit record, you're more than welcome to do so as well. Let me get this page. All right, everybody, welcome here to our webinar today. You are here for how to make values-aligned career transitions. My name is Albert. I'm the founder of Albert's List, and we're a job search, side hustle, and AI skills organization. And today, Wednesday, July 23rd, I am proud to also bring in Dr. Nethra Samrawickrema. She is here today as a career coach to talk to you about how you can make your career transition meaningful. As many of you have likely experienced over the last couple of years, it's been tough to look for a job, especially if you are in tech. And so we're here today with Dr. Nethra to talk about how you can meaningfully look at switching careers, whether it's out of tech, within tech, or something else. This is being recorded. It's available streaming actually on our YouTube channel right now, so you'll be able to find it there later. Nethra will also be reading your questions later on as well. Please use the webinar chat and the Q&A, and we will get to you. All right, Nethra, good to have you here, and thank you so much for spending your time with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Albert. I really appreciate it. I'm delighted to be here with you all. My name is Nethra Samrawickrema, and I'm an anthropologist and a career transitions coach. And I'm here today to share a process for beginning your career transition to finding work that's really aligned with who you are and that reflects your values. I work with many people who work in tech, and I have supported them from transitioning from work that leaves them feeling disconnected from themselves to getting on a pathway to find meaningful work that truly reflects who they are. And right off the bat, I want to acknowledge that a career transition is a major life transition, and it can feel daunting and intimidating. And many people find themselves wondering, where do I start? And at the beginning, most people go out and look at job listings, and the question is like, what is out there that I can fit myself into? And today I want to share with you a process that flips that question, which is to ask what is in here that really connects me with who I am, that I can bring out into the world and go out and find work that aligns with that sense of self. So I want to begin just with a few logistics. Please feel free to ask any questions you have as I speak. Please type that into the Q&A, and I really want today to be interactive. So please type in the chat in response to some of the questions I ask. And just to begin with, I'd just love to hear a little bit more from everyone, where you're joining from and what work you do. If you're between roles, I'm just going to put the question in the chat. If you're between jobs, share what your last job was. And so I'll just get started by talking about how I began this work. So I know what it's like to make a major career transition because I did so myself. So I know what it's like from the inside. I was trained as an anthropologist. I did a PhD in anthropology at Stanford, focusing on the anthropology of work. And I put over a decade and a half of my life into training to be a professor of anthropology. And as I came closer and closer to finishing my PhD, I started to realize that there was this sense of dissonance that I was experiencing inside between the work that I loved, the ideas, the practice of anthropology, the teaching, and the institutional setting in which I was working. There was a real sense of disconnect in the culture of the academic environment I was in and the kind of work I wanted to do. And I had this sense that I had put years and years of my life into training, into acquiring skills, and honing a sense of direction as to where I wanted to go, but the container I was in couldn't hold the work that I wanted to do, that there was this disconnect. And there was a real crisis of just a crisis of identity, actually, that came from that. And at the same time that I was training to be a professor, and the path was very well laid out. There were steps you would take. And there was also a massive job crisis at the same time. So I was at this juncture where I had these skills in anthropology. I was also getting trained in design thinking and also getting trained as a mediator in a process called nonviolent communication that really focused on empathetic listening. So I found myself at this crossroads where I had these three lines of interests. And I looked out there and I asked myself, where's a job description that had a way to combine these interests? And I looked far and wide, I couldn't find anything. And so I had to write my own job description. And so that is where my coaching practice emerged. And that was 5 years ago. And what started out as a deep identity crisis has now turned out into a form of work that I absolutely love. And so I went through this transition myself. And as a result of it, I started coaching people, many of whom are tech professionals who have put years into a career and come to a place where people just find themselves, for one reason or the other, feeling like they can't keep going. So some of my clients are currently in tech jobs, other people have been laid off or are taking a break and are really at this place where they're asking, what do I do to even discover where I want to go next? So I would actually love to hear a little bit more from all of you. I'm going to put a question into the chat, which is, what drew you to this workshop? What is missing from your work? And what would you like to change? So I'll just type this into the chat here because I want people to have a sense that they're not alone. Many, many of us are experiencing this real yearning to find work that is much more aligned with who we are. So the questions are in the chat. Go ahead and write your answers. So as you do this, I want to give you a sense of three entry points. Why do people make a career transition? And I want to share some examples of people I have worked with. These are not specific individuals, but patterns that I see that propel people to question, what they're doing and really search for a way out. So one group of clients that I work with, they have worked in tech. Many of them are mid-career professionals. And when they start working with me, they tell me, I did everything I thought I was supposed to. I gained a lot of technical skills. I got promoted. I have reached a level of stability, even taken a leadership role, and even come to a place of finding success. And I find myself feeling like the work has just lost its meaning and purpose. And I feel lost in at work, and I really feel like I can't find who I am. And many of these people tell me that there was a laid out path. I just did the next step. I took the next role, and I found myself lost, and then I tried changing jobs. I tried changed companies, I changed roles, still within the sphere that I was trained in, but nothing has really shifted. And I feel like I'm in the same sense of disconnection from myself and from my work. And I've come to a point in my life where I just don't want to live like this anymore, and I want to make a change. And so that's one group of people who I see. There is a sense that life has to give me more than this. Now, a second group of people that I work with come to this place where they say, there is something that I know I'm passionate about. So the first group of people find themselves at a place where they actually find it hard to know what they want and where they want to go. The second group of people have a passion. They might have a passion for writing or research, or they might be artists. Some of my clients describe themselves as people who were humanities majors and put that career aside to search for a path of stability. And so there is a sense that there is this forgotten dream that people are longing to get back to, or a passion that they put aside that is still in the background calling to them. But they haven't been able to pursue it. And there's just this sense of sadness and loss for that dream, and a real yearning to reconnect with that. Now, a third group of people that I work with are people who actually really enjoy some aspects of their work. They love the technical skills. They feel many of them are engineers, for instance, and they're good at what they do. They enjoy that part of the work. But there is this real sense that something is missing in the work environment, that the workplace culture is at odds with who they are. Many of my clients describe themselves as empaths, and they love collaboration, and they bring more than their technical skills to work. They bring a lot of emotional and relational skills. And they feel very frustrated because they want to collaborate, they initiate things, they do the conflict resolution, they troubleshoot, they problem solve, and yet they find that the empathy is not reciprocated. And there's a sense of real loneliness and isolation at work. And this is really amplified during the pandemic when people were working from home. And so these are some of the things I frequently hear. And there are many different sort of entry points as well, but these are the main threads that I hear in my sessions. And one of the things that connects people is this sense of I've reached some level of maybe stability, or I've come to a place that I thought would give me a sense of meaning and happiness, but I feel really empty inside and burnt out and exhausted. And I can see in the chat people saying that they feel overworked and underappreciated, that the 9 to 5 hasn't brought fulfillment or autonomy, and that you want something else, right? And so I want to just start with going a little bit deeper into what is behind this and what is behind the sense of emptiness and this loss of meaning. So I'm going to share my screen and share a few frameworks and concepts to get us started. So this sense of emptiness that many people describe is what in the social sciences is called alienation. And so I want to talk a little bit about what is alienation. Alienation is a sense of being cut off from yourself and the work that you're doing. And there's the way people describe this sometimes is that, when I go to work, I feel like I lose myself and I can't recognize who I am. And in order to find myself again, I have to leave the workplace. And it's a sense of being really lost inside yourself. And there are a couple of New Yorker cartoons that I want to share that kind of really capture this in a humorous and pretty pointed way. So in this cartoon, you see a boss going around and saying, "Keep up the good work, whatever it is, whoever you are." And this really captures the experience that many of my clients talk about, that there's this sense that you're pouring yourself and your life into this work, but you feel like a cog in a machine, in a large, vast machine. And there isn't a sense of ownership of the work. And there isn't a sense that, like many of my clients, for instance, say, I just show up and I like things show up on my desk and I do what's been given to me. And then that very thing changes every day. So I'm just constantly firefighting. And there isn't a sense of having ownership over my work. And when that happens for a prolonged period, there can be a real sense of a loss of self. And that's again one aspect of alienation. Another aspect of alienation is the sense that you're pouring all of yourself to work, and it's almost like this cartoon says the 4-day work week actually is a 7-day work week. And it takes a toll on our psyches, on our bodies, on our families. And there is this sense that work has taken over and you're living to work rather than working to live. And a third experience of alienation, this is something that many people I work with who've been promoted and gained leadership roles talk about, that the higher up they go in management, the further they are from the work they actually love to do and the things that they were hired to do. And so they're in roles that are misaligned with their passions, and success hasn't actually brought happiness. So these are some of the flavors of alienation that are commonly felt. And to kind of summarize it, it's a sense of being disconnected and estranged from yourself and your environment when you're doing work that's misaligned with your values. And it can really leave you feeling like a stranger in your own life. And so I want to now transition to this question, what do we do about this? How do you transition out of this place and transition to work that's really aligned with your values? So I want to start with a key reframe that making a real sustainable transition to values aligned work is a shift in mindset. to begin with. And it's a shift from changing roles or changing jobs to creating a life that's congruent with who you are. So many people I work with have actually tried changing jobs, and they've found themselves experiencing the same dynamics just in a different workplace. And some people joke that it's almost like, you change relationships, but you find yourself in the same patterns with the new person that you're with. And there is that sense of like, how do I actually get out of this experience? So, because alienation is a sense of being disconnected from a sense of meaning and purpose, the way out of it is to really return to who you are and return to what brings you meaning and purpose. And so there are a couple of things I want to talk about that are critical to remember as you approach this transition. So the first is to really give yourself permission to return to what matters to you and to return to what you value and to create the conditions that support you in looking inside. Now, many people who have worked in the corporate world for a long time have a sense that there's a pathway that's laid out, and very often that pathway doesn't give you a lot of agency to ask what you want and to do what you want. Many of us learn to do what we're told or what we think we're supposed to do to get to the next level of job advancement. And the further we go out from ourselves, it actually makes it hard for us to access what matters to us. So, the main part of the beginning of the career transition is to create like a container of safety and to really give yourself permission to look inside. The second thing I want to talk about is the time frame of transition. So, some job changes, if you're in a place where there's a place of financial distress and you need a job, there's a sense of urgency. And of course, we have to look after our families and look after ourselves. And so in that process, I encourage people to find the work they need to pay the bills. Um, so there is a context in which we just need a job, and so many people are in this position. Now, when it comes to making a very big transition from, for instance, leaving tech and going into the nonprofit world, or leaving tech and starting your own business or consultancy, something that requires a major change in how you operate, it takes time. So one of the things that I tell my clients is to think of a wider time frame to make this transition so that you don't put a lot of pressure on yourself. And if you are currently employed, this can be a wonderful time to start because if you have a financial safety net, then it's a really good time to start to transition out, either out of tech or into a different role in tech, where you don't feel rushed and pressured, and you can really give yourself the space to run the experiments and do the processes that I'm about to share with you. Now, if you're in a place where many of my clients come to me, they've been laid off or they're between jobs, and there is this sense of pressure. So, one of the things I recommend is to do this in parallel paths, which is to find a stream of income that will keep you supported for a while you also do this work that will really bring you closer to yourself. And it's this process that we go on. And so it might be looking for part-time work, it might be finding another role or a job in tech, but but create a space in your own life, either in the evenings or the weekends, where you really allocate time to slow down and to reflect and to try things out. And there's a process for navigation that I want to share with you, which I call working from the inside out. So there are two elements to this process. One is an internal dialogue that you have with yourself. And the second part of it is a set of practical things that you do in the world, and conversations that you have with people. So the rest of the time, I will guide you through a set of activities that will help you get started. And it's this real process of, I think of it like this figure eight, where there's an internal dialogue and you check in with yourself, you return to this conversation internally, and then you go out into the world and you try something out. And that sparks a whole new set of reflections. You come back inside and you examine what emerges and you go out. And this is why it takes time. That it's because it's different from fitting yourself into something that's out there. You are at the center of this process, and what happens inside you is just as important as what happens relationally and out in the world. So I want to start with an exercise right now, and I'd love to ask you to take a little time to follow this prompt on the screen. I'll guide you through these questions. I'll guide you through a visualization exercise. And if you enjoy closing your eyes and sort of getting into a more meditative state, go ahead and do that. You could also reflect on these questions as a journaling exercise. So if you are in a place where you can sort of lay back and follow my prompt, do so. Otherwise, write these down and you can think about it when you have the time and space to do so. So really start by taking some deep breaths and relaxing into your body, and close your eyes if you are comfortable with doing that. And I want you to think of a time when you felt really connected to yourself, doing the work you're doing. So it could be in this career, it could be a different kind of work, but think of a form of work or an experience of work where you got into a state of flow, where you felt absorbed, where you felt a sense of aliveness. And just see, what was it that drew you in? What was it that excited you? What was a feeling, an experience of yourself when you were doing that work? How did you feel in your body? What were the emotions that came up? What was that experience like? Were you alone? Were you with others? What lit you up? And take a minute or so to really allow yourself to re-experience it. And now let that go for a minute, and then now bring to your mind a time when you felt disconnected from yourself and your values at work, where you felt that sense of a loss of meaning or a loss of connection. And think of what was happening. What was happening inside you? What was happening relationally? What was the work? What made you feel disconnected? How did you feel in your body? How did you feel in relation to other people? How did you feel about yourself when you were doing the work? And I'd like you to let that experience go and just reflect. Imagine holding these two experiences in each one in each hand, almost like two scales. And just think of the first experience and the second experience and think, what was the difference between these two? What was it like to feel connected to yourself with the work? And what was it like to feel disconnected? What work brought you into a state of flow and absorption? And what work pulled you out? What was the difference? And just write that down or reflect on that. And I would love to hear if anyone wants to share. I would love to hear what the difference was. Nazneen says it's hard to articulate. Can you help us with how to describe this? Yes. So, for instance, you could think about what did you enjoy and what did you dislike? What helped you feel connected and what left you feeling disconnected? So I'm just going to read a few things here. Michelle says, doing work that's meaningful to others instead of benefiting the bottom line at a corporate institution. And I hear this a lot, that a part of what brings us meaning is what connects us to other people. And a lot of people say that when they're serving others, that experience is a service to themselves and it really brings them alive. So that's something to really keep in mind. Trevor says, I'm enjoyed moving through the work I've done um, and made an impact on the world. Yes. So again, right, when there is an impact, there is a sense of connection and aliveness. Yeah, I don't like the resistance towards my individuality from others. And what I'm hearing from this is also that there's a sense of autonomy that you felt. Anusha says the connection with the team made a difference. Working on meaningful things made it interesting, but boring work disconnects. Again, this sense of collaboration. I think when there is a feeling that we are connected to others, especially when we're working, it could be when people have different skill sets and different strengths, and there is a sense of togetherness. That work can also leave us with a real feeling of belonging, and that can be very joyous. Kimberly says, when doing work I feel connected to, I feel the rewards from my involvement. When doing work I don't feel connected, it's work and I don't feel internal rewards, and therefore may look for external rewards and may not get them. This is such a thank you for this observation. I hear this so much, and I think that there's this difference between internal validation and external validation. And when we do work that's connected to who we are, it has an intrinsic sense of purpose and meaning. And even if the world doesn't acknowledge it, there's a sense of satisfaction. And that sense of satisfaction is a reclamation of our agency, and it's a reconnection to ourselves. And many people who have an artistic practice feel like this, that you get to express who you are, that you get to really there's a sense that when you're doing work you love, you feel like, oh my gosh, this is who I am. And that in and of itself is rewarding. On the opposite side of the coin is this sense of external validation, which is that everything you're doing feels like a means to an end, and that your sense of self is in the hands of someone else and their approval. And you can end up feeling a lot of feelings of inadequacy can come up, a lot of feelings of that your motivation, your joy, your sense of confidence is in someone else's hands. Nazneen says connection seems to be a theme here. How do we foster this in this transition period? I will absolutely get to that. And so it's this sense of connection to ourselves and connection to others. So I want to move us to the next set of exercises. So one of the things that I find is, so the first thing that I recommend doing is really getting connected to what you love, and this might take some time. It might take, so one of the things I do with my clients is that I work one-on-one with them and I have conversations with them. I also ask them to journal. I ask them to look at their days and think, what gave me that sense of connection? What brought me alive? What got me into a state of flow? And the more you pay attention to it, the more you connect with it. There's this phrase that what we pay attention to grows and amplifies. And so the first part of the process, the work I do with my clients, I work with people for 6 months, 12 months, sometimes multiple years as they go on this journey. And the first part of this process is really about giving yourself permission to ask yourself what brings you meaning and to track it and to gain a sense of clarity about, okay, this is where I want to go. Now, what I find is that even though people come to a place of clarity of, okay, this is what I love or this is what excites me, that in and of itself is not enough, because once you start moving towards something that's a role or a job, or something out there in the world, or a business that you want to build, it's not clear whether that's actually aligned until you start doing the work. And so what I recommend to all my clients is to start experimenting with different things. And rather than just start off in one path and put all your eggs into one basket, it is to actually expand our options and expand a sense of possibility and then refine. So, so what I recommend is to prototype multiple pathways. And some of those pathways could be looking for a job or a role in a different job or a role in your current company, or staying within tech, something that feels more aligned. Some of my clients have done that, where they've they've changed their jobs or changed their roles, stayed within tech, um, stayed within engineering, for instance, but found a company where they felt a little bit more at home, where the culture was more aligned with who they are. And they kept experimenting, right? So that's one pathway you can map out. Another pathway you can map out is there a hidden passion? Is there something that you really love to do, but you didn't give yourself the permission, or the conditions of your life were such that you couldn't explore it? So that's the second thing that you can start to experiment with. And then you can start to think of, what are the wild ideas? What are the things that I haven't imagined? What could I do if I just go to the drawing board and start from scratch? So I want to give us a little taste of doing this with what I call the three parts exercise. So list three areas of work that you would like to explore transitioning into. Include a line of work that's close to your current role. Include a line of work that would give you a deep sense of meaning. And if you can't think of it immediately, think back to what brought you joy, and think about the qualities that you want to have. And then include a wild idea you hadn't considered. So take a minute or two to do this. And once you've done that, I want us to work on one more list, which is list 3 actions that you can take towards exploring one of those pathways. This could be experiences you can try out, like volunteering or shadowing someone, or conversations that you can initiate with people who are already doing that work. So this second part is the external, in the figure 8 where we had, I'll just take you back to this. What we did at the beginning was the inside part of the process, and now we're doing the outside part of the process, which is conversations and actions. So list 3 actions that you can take towards exploring one of them. And one of the most powerful ways to explore is to do informational interviews and have conversations with people who are doing that kind of work. So, for instance, if you're curious about what it's like to work in a nonprofit, are there 3 people you can think about who you can talk to and ask, what's your work day like? What's your experience of work like? What do you enjoy? What do you not enjoy? If you're thinking of potentially starting your own business, are there people you know who run their own companies? Or if you're thinking of, switching to a startup, who do you know you can talk to? So just write down a couple of ideas. And feel free to type in the chat what that was like to do. Did that open things up? What came up? And if you have any questions, feel free to share. And as you do that, I want to tell you a story about a client I worked with who embarked on this inside out figure 8 path. And this is the process she went on. So this client is an engineer, and she had this experience again of, she graduated, she got her first job, she got promoted, she was very good at what she did. And she really enjoyed the engineering work. And then she also went into a managerial role and found that she really thrived in supporting people and building a team and like working one-on-one with people with mentoring. But she found herself as the months and years went by just feeling very, very burnt out because she was doing so much emotional work and it wasn't being reciprocated. So she found herself feeling very lonely and isolated and very frustrated with the mismatch between her values and the workplace culture she was working in. And so she was feeling a real that was a real conundrum because she loved engineering, but the environment felt misaligned. And she said she really wanted to find work that was aligned with her values, and she wanted to find colleagues who she could relate to and people who really understood, the way she wanted to be with others. And she wanted to make an impact through her work. And so she did these 3 pathways. She applied to many, many jobs in engineering. And then she also started looking for work outside engineering and outside of tech. And the other thing she said she really wanted to do was she wanted to spend some time working remotely and traveling because she wanted to find a location where she wanted to live for a while. So she came to me and she said, I want to do remote work in engineering outside of tech. This seems impossible. Like, how do I do this? And I really encouraged her to stay on this path of working from the inside out. And she said, there's no job out there that has this description. And because I knew what it was like to go through that process myself, I encouraged her to keep staying with what matters to her. And another thing that we did in the coaching process is I asked her to think about what she feels like at work right now, and that as she applies for other jobs, I said, think about the dynamics as you have your interviews, think about the relational dynamics. How are people speaking to you? How are people treating you? Are you feeling respected? Are you feeling like there's a sense of openness to your ideas and a collaborative spirit? And she started to really first honor the fact that she gets to be around the kinds of people she wants to be with. And that was a big step for her. And so in the interviews, it was not just her feeling like people were interviewing her. She felt like she was also interviewing the people she was potentially going to work with. And she found this job where it was in a nonprofit and they were looking for an engineer. And the work was so connected to her values. And the people felt immediately resonant. And she was very, very excited. But what she found out was that they didn't want her to do remote work. And she had come to this process where she was just like, what I want matters so much to me. And the life that I want to create matters so much to me. I'm not going to give up. So she actually turned it down. But she found to her surprise that the director of the nonprofit said that the skills you have and the way you are with people is so aligned with what we want that we'll make an exception. And so the last time I spoke to her, she was traveling, living far away from where she was initially, doing work as an engineer, work that was really aligned with her values and making the impact she wanted to make. So this is the kind of possibility that can open up if you really honor what matters to you and stay with the process. So I want to share one last thing and then open things up for the Q&A. So this is something I have come to find from years of coaching clients and making this career transition, that the road to meaningful work is rarely straight, that there are many twists and turns, and understanding and anticipating what can come up can really help us move away from feeling discouraged and help us really navigate all the twists and turns in the road. And so I want to share some of the challenges I see and the roadblocks I see, and share how what I've found to be effective in navigating these. So, for instance, if you come to when you come to a place of clarity that this is something you want to explore that's new, a new line of work, or even a different role, that can feel like a real breakthrough and it can feel really exciting. When I work with my clients, it usually takes 2 to 3 months to come to like a real sense of clarity. And once people have that clarity, they start moving towards it. They start having conversations, they start volunteering. Um, and this is when things can get a little tricky because you're taking something that's sort of embryonic, that's within you, out into the world. And it doesn't bear fruit immediately. And so people find that challenges come up, obstacles come up. They might initiate a series of conversations with people and they won't hear back. There might be silence, or people promise to connect you to other people and they don't end up following through. Or you volunteer and then you realize, like, oh, I don't actually enjoy this work. And in the face of that, a lot of things can come up inside. And what I find is that we all have these protective patterns that we've cultivated over a lifetime to prevent us from feeling pain. So at this moment, I find that some people sort of find that they want to avoid facing rejection and experiencing failure, and they pull back. This happens so frequently, and it's really hard sometimes to go back out there and keep trying. Other people feel like, oh my gosh, this is too risky. I can't do this. It's too scary to really put into the world what matters to me. And then they they pull back. And the other thing that I find is some people sort of go full throttle and really get burnt out because they expect that change will come quickly. And so, to prevent these things, one of the things I really encourage my clients to do is to slow down and take incremental steps and really change their relationship to failure and cultivate a lot of self-compassion and cultivate a community of support around you so that you can really, you don't have to hold this alone. You don't have to do all of this alone. And to really bring an experimental mindset where you go out and try things out as a prototype. And if it fails, you can learn from it and you can really start to narrow down what is it that I want, and the things that don't work out are also illuminating, and they reveal and reveal things and help us hone in on where we want to go. So really seeing this as a process that has many, many twists and turns, but staying grounded and connected to who you are and what you want in your life is something that can eventually take you to where you want to go so that you can have a life that is really yours. So, and in order to do that, I wanted to, before I go into the Q&A, I want to share some resources with you all. And on my website, I made a resource page. There are some podcasts, there are articles, and for anyone who would like to do some individual work, I have a discount code on the website. So you can use this QR code and check out those resources. And we'll send these out to you as well. So I would love to hear from you all if you have any questions, and is there anything I can support you with? Going to stop the sharing and I'll paste a link in the chat so that you can check out the resources. But meanwhile, please feel free to write any questions you have. Is there a place that you feel stuck, or have you come to any roadblocks? Or is there anything you feel concerned or worried or scared about? No, thank you, Kristen. Wonderful. I'm really glad to see all the responses in the chat, and please feel free to reach out. I am here. Feel free to write and connect, and I'm here to support. And if you have any questions, you can write to me. I'll share my email address as well.
All right, just coming back. No questions from anybody. No burning questions. All right. Oh, everybody loves it. Let me share Nethra's LinkedIn here.
Thank you so much, Albert. I really appreciate it. It was so wonderful to be here and to connect with
Yeah, absolutely.
everyone.
All right. Well, if nobody has any questions, we can go ahead and conclude it here. Thank you all again for spending your Wednesday or Thursday, depending on where you are in this world, with us. We've got many other webinars on Albert's list in the Eventbrite or Meetup group that might have sent you here. So please feel free to check those out. And we'll be also following up with this video and some of Nethra's contact information. Thank you all so much, and we will all see you again soon. Bye bye.